Welcome back. Today we'll be installing this LED controller. This is made for a red, green, blue system, or RGB system as they're more commonly abbreviated to. This remote obviously would control this controller via the little eye here, and it outputs down to this piece here. And if you need to connect your power supply leads to a plug-in, you would do so and connect it here, but I already have the provisions for that. You see, this is actually a replacement. The problem I was having with the older controller is when you pressed red, you got a different color. It was actually, I think, red and green were swapped, and I double-checked the wiring, and it was not a problem with the wiring. And we're going to hopefully confirm that today. I believe I took the unit down and tested it out. I no longer have it, so I can't actually test it. I may have just pitched it because it might not have even worked after it came out, and I just ended up finally replacing it. Now the reason why I haven't replaced it is because originally I was using this for white, but when you have a red, green, blue system, white is a mixture of all three colors at once, and you don't really truly get a nice white. What ends up happening is shadows, like here on my hand is, end up having multiple lines around it where each red, green, and blue LED has its own pattern, I guess you could say, and it kind of doesn't really look that great in camera. So what I ended up doing was putting a completely different strip of light up there next to the colored strip, and it's just this single row, or I should say a single strip of double rowed LEDs. And I'll pan the camera up here in just a second and show you that. But the red, green, blue system still sits on there, and I can select back and forth between the two, and I would like to be able to do that again. Ultimately, I'm going to rebuild it completely. Well, I'll actually build a whole new unit, and I'll use this one as either a backup or additional lighting in here, and the new unit will be, of course, a lot better. But anyway, I'll pan the camera up here in a moment and you'll get an idea of what we're talking about. And as you can see, like I said, it's just a simple piece of wood. I do have a video on this, if I remember correctly, explaining what I did, and I may have even lined up in that video of actually doing it, putting the white lights in it. But on the opposite sides of the white light, which maybe you'll see if I actually kill it here, you'll see that there are actually other strips towards the outer edges, and those are the red, green, blue strips. Now when I zoom up here, I will show you what we're talking about. Here's the red, green, blue strip. It comes in a 16-foot roll. This is a 4-foot board altogether. So what I ended up doing was taking the 4 feet and took the 16-foot roll and cut them into four 4-foot lengths basically, and doubled them. So there's 1, 2, this is the white one, and then 3 and 4 slightly out of camera up here on the top, and that's all hooked up to one of these controllers originally. And then that controller, like I said, is hooked up to a power supply on the other side here, and the power supply is powerful enough to power the whole thing. It can't do the white strip and the colored strip at the same time though. That's why I kind of have it on an A-B selection. So that's pretty much the layout of that. I mean, it's simple. The newer one will end up having double rowed, because again, this is single row red, green, blue. This is double row white, and what I mean by that is there's multiple segments. Each segment has 3 LEDs on the single row and 6 on the double row. So you're basically getting twice the amount of light, or twice the amount of LED as well, in the distance of the other. I mean, it kind of makes sense, I guess. So what I want to do is actually put 2 strips of the white and 2 strips of the colored, both in the double row, which would be a lot more light than that's on there already, with a powerful enough of a transformer that I could theoretically operate all the colors at once. And instead of getting a simple red, green, blue, again, controller like this, I would get a red, green, blue, white controller, which is actually meant to control the strips that have the red, green, blue, and white lights all together in one strip. And the reason why I'm not getting that kind of tape is because that only really comes in single row. So I would actually have to put more of it on here. And I believe the case is too, it takes more power to run the same amount of light in the single rows if you got double the single row if you did just getting double row, because of the amount of resistors they use. Because the purpose of this tape is to actually be able to cut it at length wherever you need. Well, because of that, each segment has its own resistors. If you knew from the factory this thing was going to be exactly 10 foot, 8 foot, 4 foot, whatever you wanted to do, you could base the resistors in there on that length, but then you wouldn't be able to cut it to fit. So that's the advantage of making it yourself versus cutting it. Now it's easier to cut it, but you end up having to draw a lot more power because you have all those resistors because of all the segments that are involved. So there is drawbacks to it. When I do the new build video, I will completely explain why I picked each component and the power levels of each component and the whole 9 yards. But for the time being now, what we have to do is get this down off the ceiling. We have to get all the stuff I have stored up there. As you can tell, I'm a fan of Legos, so I have some Lego models up there, as well as some other things I want to keep out of the way of the cats so they don't knock it over and make a mess or possibly get sick from drinking Mod Podge or stuff like that. But other than that, we'll get that down, get this piece off, and get that controller installed and test it out. Now we have 4 Phillips head screws that I'll have to remove to get the wood shell on the other side out. It is a little tight in there, so as I remove this, we will have to fuss with some connections in there. Again, the new one's going to be much better than this. You know, the first one's a proof of concept, I guess you could say, and the second one always ends up being the better one, hopefully, if things work out the right way. The screws are out, and once we get that lifted up here, like I said, it is a little tight. And I did add more length of wire in here, but overall it's a little iffy sometimes. But you know, that's what happens. On this side is our 120 volt in. The problem I had with this particular build initially, I'll mention now, is this board has these funky connectors on here, and I had to find them because it came with just the male end on the board and they didn't give you the end to put on the wire, which makes sense. But you know, and I had to source those. I had to source one for the output. So these just unclip like that, and we can now actually pull this away. The thing about it though is there is some pieces that are directly soldered to the board, so I really don't like to disconnect this end because I've had a lot of problems with this particular build when I first did it. So I'll refrain from disconnecting that side, but this one we can, just to, you know, get this to hopefully get out of the way a little bit better. Now in here I do have my own plug-in jack set up already for the controller, and that's going to go right in. Now down here on this particular board, well, up here for you, but down here for me, there's a blue connector, and there's actually 4 screws in here, and that's where the different wires are connecting. You can see there's one up here, there's another one down here, and those are going to the actual strips. And then right behind it there's a little row of pins, and that's where this is going to connect to. So it's literally just as simple as plugging this in here and then connecting the power here. And the only thing I do have to do is connect the eye, you know, actually bring it out of the case somehow. Originally I had it longer leads on the one that I had in here, and that ran out to a hole underneath and was just glued. Simple. This time I'm just going to let this lead kind of hang out because, you know, it's not really imperative that I have that set up any particular way. And what I do have to do though is make sure this goes the right way. Now there really isn't much of a risk if you go the opposite direction, because it just won't work. I've done that multiple times, it's worked fine, so we're gonna just make sure it's right, obviously. because I'd rather not take the chance and have it be wrong. What we're looking for is this little tiny arrow right here, which you really can't see in the camera. It's going to just swamp it right out. But trust me, there's a little tiny arrow. It's pointing to one of the pins. It's marked on both sides, and that's the what's called the black wire. There's a black, red, green, and blue, and the black is what carries the negative connection, I believe. Or some of them it's the positive connection, some of them it's the negative connection, and it's either one positive with 3 negatives or one negative with 3 positives, depending on your particular situation. And honestly, off the top of my head right now, I don't really remember what this one is, because it has been a while since I've looked at it. The 12 volt, so it's the positive and 3 negatives on this particular one. So we got to find which one of these is the positive and which ones are the negatives, and there's only really 2 ways it can go. So you have a 50% chance really of getting it right the first time, I guess. So we're actually just going to go ahead and figure out which one that is, and I'll be right with you. And it appears that it's the topmost one. And the reason why I came across that deduction was that the particular wire that I'm using here isn't your standard red, green, blue, black like I mentioned. It's actually white, black, red, and green. It's meant for a completely different application. It's just what I had, so I did have to use the colors differently than I would have wanted to, and I just went straight across the line. I didn't match the colors up, so the red and green ones that I have don't actually match up the red and green necessarily, but it is the white one, because the green one I have lines up with the blue wire, the blue color. So the green wire, blue color, that's the opposite of the white one. So we're going to line up the arrow with the white connector, the white wire, you know, the whole thing, and that's just going to slide in, hopefully like that, and we're just going to plug that in, which I already did. Now there was a spot you can see up here where I painted it, and I might have to undo some twisty ties here. It looks like there's a couple here kind of keeping this wire spooled up. So I could see if I could try to get that mounted up in the spot. I might have to just hot glue it in spot, but I will test it out first before I see if it works. And to do that, I'm just going to lower this down. I do have to actually plug the wire here. Now I know which one this side is because there's a clip. I just lined the clip up with the other side, so it does actually clip. We'll lower this in, make sure the wires don't hit that fan in there. There is no guard on it. I should actually see if I have a guard lying around. I should put that in there while I'm here. Alright, now what we'll do is just plug this in, and I'll turn it on, we'll test it out. Oh, yep, it works. Now here's that selector switch. So selector switch in the middle is off, one way is white, the other way off, and then back to the other side is the color strips. Now some of these do look a little different, and that's because this has actually got some kind of a conformal coating. It's like a clear epoxy, if you will, that's flexible, that they apply over the top. And this is kind of, yeah, it sits over the top of this, and over time it kind of yellows. It's kind of weird, but sections over here I've actually seen if I can remove it, and it does come off, but you end up having problems in spots because it may take off the traces, so I don't recommend that. The newer stuff like this actually has a removable sleeve. You can get it waterproof and non-waterproof. This is what non-waterproof looks like. Waterproof would just have a sleeve over it, like I said. I removed my sleeve because I couldn't find this at the time in you know, non-waterproof, I'll say. I do like, when I turn that back on here, I do like the look of the one, like again, like white does, better than I do, you know, the ones where it's diffused. But anyway, we'll test this controller out. I have to pull the battery out, a little protector, and I don't remember where the, yeah, okay, here's the little eye. Let's see, on and off. Okay, that works. Let's try just white. Now, we'll kill this light. I hope the camera does pick it up. Some of these sections look yellowed out, like right here, and then see how these, this light, maybe they look a little, or better yet, this strip here, you can see they're white, and this over here is yellow. That's because of that coating. That white versus that white. definitely this one is much more intense. However, like I said, this is 3 colors trying to make white. The other thing I'll mention, these lights, these particular LEDs, this is what's called 50-50 style. And if I zoom in really close, which you actually can see from this distance, which is really great, there are 3 segments in there, and as you can imagine, each segment's a different color. Red, green, and blue. Not sure which is which, but I might be able to even actually turn these on and go to the color and turn the intensity down, which we can do here, and see which particular one. Okay, it looks like the middle segment in here is red. Then the leftmost one is green, the rightmost one is blue. I'll show you that again. There's the green, there's the blue. Now over here it's the reverse because the strip runs in the opposite direction. So over here the blue is on the left, the green is on the right, the red is in the middle. Turn on white, you do see them all at the same time. This is the 50-50 LED they call this. That's just the model number. When you do have red, green, blue, you would have separate segments. However, when you do have white up here, which is all white, and you can see it's got that same yellow emitter like all the other white LEDs usually do. There is actually still 3 segments in there, but each segment lights up white. So in theory, for what this is mixing white light here, you're getting 3 times the brightness per actual light. Not to mention there's 6 of those per segment as opposed to 3 of those per segment here. And these are the segments. If you cut right here and cut right here, you can actually remove this, apply 12 volts to it, and it will light separately on its own. And you don't need a controller to power these, by the way. You can actually select individual colors. I do have a project. It's not really in front of me right now. Perhaps I can get it in just a second here as I talk. And it's designed to actually take the red, green, blue outputs and put them to switches. And actually, since this is an 8-position switch, I can do that for 2 strips. And you can actually see there are 2 sets of pins here, a top and a bottom. So that's the different outputs, and then this is an input. So you can use this to actually color mix and do separate things on its own without any kind of controller, and it's just a just a basic switch. Now it will just do red, green, blue and combinations of that. You can't, you know, fine tune it like this controller does, where it has separate buttons to do that. But you know, it can be done, I guess, to a slight extent. And speaking of which, I will show you that. So if I press the DIY button, you can see, oh, we do have actually different intensities here, by the way. But we can actually adjust this. So if I want to take away the red, add more blue, you know, you can actually do that with this and then save that color setting. And also you have, you know, all these modes like jump, like you saw before, where it jumps through all the different colors, or fades. You know, these are actually nice for the holidays because where this sits, it actually lights up right above my desk, and you can see that out through the windows. So it actually has like a nice effect without having to put any lights outside, although I still tend to do that. So anyway, now what I'm going to do is just affix that to the inside, get the screws mounted, we'll put it back on the ceiling, and you can see how it looks in the room in general. I've got the light hanging back up, everything's mounted, just put a dab of hot glue in the bottom of that controller and just stuck it to the wood. And I simply just brought the controller right down, stuck it down the side here, the actual eye for it, so I can hit it remotely. Now the remote control won't obviously control the white light, it's only going to do the color light. So if I do want to use the remote, I have to flip a switch that I actually have up top here. Like I said, the middle one's off, the bottom one brings it down to the color mode. Now right now I just have it set for green. And I'll actually shut off the rest of the light in the room, including the light on the camera, in just a second here. And you can see we're just under green light. Now I'm actually going to pitch the camera back down here, and it actually in the viewfinder looks kind of yellow. It's kind of weird, but it is in fact a very vibrant green. We'll go to blue, we'll go to red, And then we can just do combinations of a whole bunch of different colors here. Just let it go right through. And see what all the different ones are. There's some nice like orange. Now like I said, this is actually lighting up the blinds in the background here, which is actually pretty cool. You do see this from outside. And there's actually a bit of UV to this. It really doesn't pick up on camera. Right now to the viewfinder, from what I'm looking at, everything looks blue. But in reality, everything in the room looks purple. And everything like the blues on my Heiko, the yellows here, you know, a lot of different colors kind of really pop. It almost has that 3D effect, which is kind of weird to describe. It's very hard to describe actually. But this is a neat color. But we'll go to white and I'll show you what basic white looks like. And you can see it's more of a blue tone. Now that I pitch the camera down to a white surface, it kind of balances out. And it's not bad. I used to run it like this, and I had this white light, which is again the 10 watt LED. But there's no comparison from that to flipping this over to the actual white. You can see it's a lot brighter too. That's, you know, definitely the difference. Now, the new one, like I said, that's going to be able to run both of them simultaneously. Or at least that's the idea. There's a couple different ways I can attack it. It's just a matter of the controller. There's so many different ones besides these type of controllers. You can actually get Wi-Fi ones that you can use your tablet to control it with a little app, which is pretty neat. I may go that route. But at any rate, that's all I wanted to discuss for this particular video, was just showing you the effect of that particular light, like I said, and then running different colors and being able to use it. You know, the red's great for a dark room effect or anything like that where you need that kind of light. Certainly can use that. I'll mention right before I leave, this white light you see lit up here, this is actually the same double row stuff that's up above in that light. And I just cut the little segments out and just kind of glue them in here with wires connecting them all, and it's all powered off my power supply for now. Eventually they'll be on their own system over here, but I just thought I would point that out. Well, anyway guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next video.